Little Stork's Big Journey. Time of separation. Once upon a time, in a lush, watery meadow, there was a little stork who played happily with the other young storks. His feathers were not yet completely white, and his beak had not yet turned fully orange. His name was Tiny. Tiny was enjoying the warm summer days with his family and friends. However, the first cool breezes appearing in the sky were harbingers of the approaching migration season for the storks. Mother and father storks had begun to prepare Tiny and the other young ones. A long and difficult journey awaited them. Tiny was both excited and a little scared by this idea. He had never flown such a long distance before. What if he got tired on the way? Or what if he lost his family? One morning, as the sun rose, all the storks were in a great flurry. They opened their wings and rose into the sky. Tiny took off with his family. As the familiar meadow below gradually shrank, Tiny flapped his wings with excitement. For the first few days, everything was fine. They moved in families, forming white lines in the sky. Mother and father storks guided their young, encouraging them, but one day, an unexpected storm broke out. Dark clouds covered the sky, the wind intensified, and rain began to pour down. The flock of storks panicked. Everyone was scattered. Tiny tried to stay close to his family, but the wind tossed him around like a leaf. When he opened his eyes, the storm had passed, but he could not see his family. He was alone. He felt scared and helpless, not knowing what to do. He looked around, trying to call his family, but only his own desperate cries echoed. Thus, Tiny's big journey had not started as he had hoped. Now, he had to travel alone towards an unknown land, and here is the visual reflecting this chapter: a small stork chick flapping its wings helplessly alone in a sky where the clouds are beginning to clear after a storm. Below, a green landscape and the silhouettes of other storks can be seen in the distance. A wise encounter, little stork landed softly. Wind had separated him. Tall trees rustled. He chirped, but only the forest replied. He walked on red legs through sun. Flowers moved. Insects buzzed. Everything was new. Fear and interest mixed, yellow eyes watched from above. A large owl sat, brown and gray. This was Wise Owl. Little Stork stopped. The owl blinked calmly. Hello, the owl hooted. Lost? I lost my family, chirped Little Stork, shaking. Flying south, the wind is tricky, Wise Owl said kindly. Where to? Little Stork told him. Wise Owl listened. Said the owl. Family by the river. Safest way, hope grew. Can I find them? Wise Owl opened wings. Hard for small one, but possible. Forest has danger and help. Be brave and watch. He looked down. A green turtle moved slowly. Helpful tortoise, Wise Owl said. He knows the forest. Tortoise looked kindly. Welcome. Being alone is hard. Can I help? Little Stork felt relief. Thank you. Any help? Wise Owl nodded. Tortoise leads to the river. See cheerful butterflies too. They carry news. Little Stork listened. Finding family hard, but with friends, he felt determined. Journey started. Following the gentle guide, Little Stork, hope fluttering in his chest, followed helpful Tortoise. Wise Owl's words gave him courage. Tortoise moved slowly, his shell gleaming. The forest smelled sweet, butterflies with bright wings danced around them. These were the cheerful butterflies. Little Stork smiled. Are we far? He chirped, more confident now. Helpful Tortoise paused. Good progress, he said slowly. River should be near midday. The path changed. They passed big trees and sunny meadows. Little Stork was amazed. Suddenly, butterflies swirled around him. One blue butterfly landed on his head. We saw storks, it chirped. South, by the bending willow, my family. Little Stork cried. Heart leaping, helpful tortoise smiled. Good news. Willow is close. Little Stork felt new energy. He walked faster, imagining his family. Butterflies flew with them, symbols of hope. Rounding a bend, water sounds grew louder. Then, through trees, he saw blue, the river. Near a bent willow, he saw other storks. With a joyful cry, Little Stork flew up, wings strong. He soared towards them, happy. His big journey was ending well. The sound of loneliness, as he flapped his wings across the boundless sky, the little stork glanced around for a moment. Not feeling the warmth and reassuring presence of his family, his tiny heart began to beat with worry. The lush green fields and shimmering rivers stretching below no longer seemed so inviting. It was as if nature itself shared his loneliness. The wind had turned into a murmuring whisper, and the clouds hung low like sorrowful shadows. Hoping to find his family, the little stork flew over a forest. As he glided through the dense branches of the trees, he heard different sounds. Chirping birds, croaking frogs, and rustling leaves. Every sound was foreign to his tiny ears, which strained to hear a familiar call. He landed on the top of a tree and scanned his surroundings with tired eyes. Every silhouette he saw, every sound he heard, reminded him of his family for a brief moment, but disappointment quickly followed. As sunset approached, a mournful sound echoed from the depths of the forest. It was the wise hoot of the wise owl. With a surge of hope, the little stork glided towards the sound. When he saw the owl sitting in the hollow of an old tree, he approached timidly. Noticing the helplessness in his eyes, the wise owl responded with a calming gaze. For the first time since being separated, the little stork saw compassion in the eyes of another creature. And this brought a small measure of peace to his tiny heart. Perhaps he was not entirely alone in this vast forest. The dance of the butterflies, as he journeyed alone through the forest, the little stork's wings grew weary. He decided to rest in the shade of a tree. Just as his eyes were about to close, he noticed the gentle fluttering of colorful wings. When he opened his eyes, he was greeted by dozens of cheerful butterflies dancing all around him. These tiny creatures, bearing every shade of red, blue, yellow, and green, seemed to be fluttering around him as if to remind him that he was not alone. One of the butterflies, with bright yellow wings, landed right in front of the little stork. It moved its antennae as if trying to speak to him. The little stork watched these lovely creatures with admiration. Their cheerful movements and vibrant colors momentarily dispelled the feeling of loneliness within him. The dance of the butterflies reminded him that there were still beautiful things in life. After a while, the butterflies began to circle around the little stork. It was as if they were indicating a path to him. The little stork understood this invitation and slowly took flight. The cheerful butterflies accompanied him, guiding him deeper into the forest. As they flew together, a faint smile appeared on the little stork's face. Perhaps these colorful friends would not leave him alone on his way to find his family. A shell of kindness, flying through a sun-dappled meadow, the little stork noticed a slow-moving shape below. Landing gently, he saw a kind-looking tortoise with a mossy shell, slowly munching on some clover. The tortoise looked up with calm, gentle eyes as the little stork approached. Feeling his weariness, the tortoise invited him to rest beside him for a while. The little stork sat down, feeling the cool grass beneath his feet. He watched as the tortoise patiently continued to eat. There was a quiet peacefulness about the tortoise that made the little stork feel a sense of calm he hadn't felt since he left his family. The tortoise, noticing the stork's quiet sadness, spoke in a slow, comforting voice, asking if he was lost. The little stork, feeling safe, explained about being separated from his family during the migration. The helpful tortoise listened intently, nodding his head slowly. When the little stork finished his story, the tortoise offered some wise words and suggested that they could look for a landmark together once the stork had rested. The little stork felt a surge of gratitude towards this gentle creature. For the first time since his journey began, he felt a glimmer of hope that he might not be alone in his search after all. An acorn of curiosity. After resting with the kind tortoise, the little stork felt a bit more energy in his wings. Thanking his new friend, he took to the sky again. He flew over a forest filled with tall trees, their leaves rustling in the gentle breeze. Suddenly, a flash of brown caught his eye. Perched on a low branch, a curious squirrel with bright, beady eyes was watching him intently, a half-eaten acorn clutched in its tiny paws. As the little stork landed on a nearby branch, the squirrel tilted its head, its whiskers twitching with curiosity. It chattered excitedly, its voice full of playful energy, and hopped closer to get a better look at the unfamiliar bird. The squirrel peppered the little stork with questions, wanting to know where he was going, why he was alone, and what it was like to fly so high in the sky. The little stork, amused by the squirrel's boundless curiosity, patiently answered its many questions. He told the squirrel about his journey and his search for his family. The curious squirrel listened with wide-eyed interest, occasionally pausing its chattering to nibble on its acorn. By the time the little stork finished his story, the squirrel seemed to have a new understanding of the world beyond its tree. Before the stork flew off, the squirrel scampered down its branch and offered him a piece of its acorn as a friendly gesture, a small token of their brief but cheerful encounter. A chorus of croaks. Continuing his journey, the little stork flew over a sparkling pond surrounded by lush green reeds. The air was filled with a chorus of cheerful croaks. Landing near the water's edge, he saw a family of friendly frogs of all sizes, some big and boisterous, others small and shy, all gathered around the pond. They stopped their croaking and looked at the little stork with curious eyes. A large, green frog with bulging eyes hopped closer and greeted the little stork with a friendly croak. "Welcome to our pond." Soon, all the frogs were gathered around, their wet, shiny skin glistening in the sunlight. They were a lively and talkative bunch, and they eagerly asked the little stork about his travels. He shared his story of being separated from his family, and the frogs listened with sympathy, their heads bobbing in understanding. The friendly frog family offered the little stork a place to rest and invited him to catch some tasty insects with them. The little stork, feeling welcomed by their cheerful company, spent some time by the pond. He watched the little tadpoles swimming in the water and listened to the frogs' lively conversations. Their joyful energy was contagious, and for a while, the little stork's worries seemed to fade away, replaced by the simple pleasure of new friendships and the soothing sounds of the pond. Wisdom in the woods. After a pleasant stay with the friendly frog family, the little stork continued his journey. He flew deeper into the woods, the trees growing taller and denser. The sunlight dappled through the leaves, creating a mosaic of light and shadow on the forest floor. As he flew, he kept a watchful eye out for any familiar sights or sounds that might lead him back to his family. Suddenly, he heard a soft hooting sound nearby. He recognized it instantly. It was the wise owl he had encountered before. He landed on a sturdy branch near the owl, feeling a sense of comfort in the wise creature's presence. The owl looked at him with knowing eyes, its gaze calm and reassuring. "Little one," the owl hooted softly, "your journey has taken you far. What troubles weigh upon your heart?" The little stork, feeling safe in the owl's presence, shared his continued worries about finding his family. The wise owl listened patiently, its head tilted thoughtfully. When the little stork had finished speaking, the owl shared some gentle words of encouragement and offered some advice on how to navigate the vast forest and listen for the signs of his flock. The owl's wisdom filled the little stork with renewed hope and a clearer sense of direction for his ongoing search. A flutter of hope, following the wise owl's advice, the little stork soared above the trees, his eyes scanning the horizon. He listened carefully for any familiar calls or the sight of other storks. As he flew over a wide, open meadow dotted with colorful wildflowers, he noticed a group of butterflies fluttering in a seemingly purposeful direction, heading towards the distant hills. Remembering his earlier encounter with the cheerful butterflies, a spark of hope flickered within him. Perhaps these butterflies were also on their own journey or had seen other birds flying in that direction. He decided to follow them, his wings beating with renewed determination, as he followed the fluttery guides. The landscape began to change. The gentle meadows gave way to rolling hills, and in the distance, he could see a line of tall, jagged peaks against the bright blue sky. The butterflies continued to lead him onward, their colorful wings creating a vibrant trail through the air. The little stork felt a growing sense of anticipation. Could these cheerful creatures be leading him to his family, or at least to a new clue in his search? The journey was still long, but for the first time in a while, the little stork felt a genuine sense of hope fluttering in his own small heart, just like the butterflies ahead. The hillside shell, the cheerful butterflies continued to guide the little stork towards the rolling hills. As they ascended, the landscape became rockier and the trees grew sparser. Eventually, the butterflies fluttered down and landed near a familiar sight, the helpful tortoise, slowly making his way up the hillside. The little stork landed beside his friend, feeling a wave of warmth and familiarity. The tortoise looked up with a gentle smile. "Well, hello there, little one," he said in his slow, comforting voice. "It seems our paths have crossed again." The little stork was happy to see a friendly face. He told the tortoise that he was following the butterflies, hoping they might lead him to his family. The helpful tortoise nodded thoughtfully. "The butterflies are keen observers," he said. "They often see things that others miss. Perhaps they have seen your family flying nearby." Together, the little stork and the tortoise continued their journey up the hillside, the butterflies flitting around them like colorful guides, their shared hope growing with each upward step and flutter. A nutty observation, as the little stork and the helpful tortoise continued their ascent up the rolling hills, with the cheerful butterflies flitting ahead, they heard a familiar, energetic chattering sound. Perched on a rocky outcrop overlooking a small valley was the curious squirrel, its bushy tail twitching excitedly. It was holding another acorn, but this time, it wasn't eating it. Instead, it seemed to be pointing with it towards something in the distance. The little stork and the tortoise stopped and looked in the direction the squirrel was indicating. At first, they couldn't see anything out of the ordinary. But then, as they looked closer, they spotted a few white feathers caught on the branches of a tall, solitary tree in the valley below. The curious squirrel chattered excitedly, dropping its acorn in its eagerness. "Feathers! White feathers! Like yours," it seemed to be saying. The little stork's heart skipped a beat. White feathers could mean other storks. Could it be a sign that his family wasn't too far away? A renewed sense of urgency filled him, and he thanked the curious squirrel for its sharp observation. The prospect of a possible clue filled him with a hopeful flutter in his chest. Down to the valley, with a hopeful flutter in his heart, the little stork bid farewell to the helpful tortoise and the curious squirrel. Guided by the cheerful butterflies, he soared down towards the valley where the white feathers had been spotted. As he descended, the solitary tree with the telltale feathers became clearer. Landing gently on a branch near the caught feathers, the little stork examined them closely. They were indeed white, like his own. His excitement grew. This could be a sign that other storks had been in this area recently. He looked around the valley, his eyes searching for any other clues or familiar sights. The cheerful butterflies fluttered around him, as if sharing his anticipation. They danced among the wildflowers that carpeted the valley floor, their vibrant colors adding to the hopeful atmosphere. The little stork took a deep breath, the air filled with the sweet scent of blossoms. He felt a renewed sense of purpose. The white feathers were a small clue, but they were enough to fuel his determination to continue his search in this promising valley. Echoes on the breeze, exploring the wildflower-filled valley, the little stork flew low over the swaying blossoms, his keen eyes scanning every nook and cranny. The cheerful butterflies danced ahead, their colorful wings like tiny beacons of hope. He called out tentatively, a soft cuckoo, hoping his family might be nearby and hear him. Only the gentle rustling of the wind through the tall grasses answered. He landed near a small stream, its water gurgling over smooth stones. As he dipped his beak for a drink, he heard a faint sound carried on the breeze. It was a soft, familiar clack-clack, the sound of stork bills chattering. His heart leaped with excitement. It was distant, but unmistakable. He looked up, his eyes searching the sky in the direction of the sound. The cheerful butterflies seemed to sense his heightened anticipation, fluttering even more excitedly around him. He took flight immediately, his wings beating with newfound energy, following the faint echoes on the breeze, hoping with all his might that they would lead him to his lost family. The valley, once just another stop on his journey, now held a promising clue, a whisper of reunion carried on the wind. A ride with a friend, the little stork felt a little bit lonely. He had been flying for many days, and although the cheerful butterflies kept him company with their joyful dances, he missed the sound of his family's clacking bills. He landed near a calm, sparkling lake, hoping to catch a fish for a late breakfast. As he sipped some water, he saw a slow-moving shape nearby. It was the helpful tortoise, his ancient shell covered in moss. "Hello," chirped the little stork. The tortoise blinked slowly. "Well, hello there, little one. You seem a bit down." "I am trying to find my family," the stork sighed. "But it is a very long way, and my wings are tired." The tortoise nodded thoughtfully. "Long journeys are easier with company. And sometimes, a different way of traveling can help." He then offered, "If you like, you can rest your wings on my back for a while. I may be slow, but I am steady." The little stork's eyes widened with hope. "Really? That would be wonderful." He carefully hopped onto the tortoise's smooth shell. It felt surprisingly comfortable. As they started to move along the path beside the lake, the curious squirrel peeked down from a tree branch, chattering with curiosity. The little stork smiled. Maybe this journey wouldn't be so lonely after all. Having a friend, even a slow one, made the path ahead seem a little brighter. Cheerful greetings, riding on the back of the helpful tortoise was a new and interesting experience for the little stork. The world looked different from this low vantage point. He could see tiny wildflowers he had never noticed before, and the scent of the damp earth was strong and comforting. The tortoise moved slowly but surely, his steady pace a soothing rhythm. As they continued their journey, they entered a wide, green meadow. Colorful flowers swayed gently in the breeze, and the air was filled with the buzzing of bees. Near a small, sparkling pond, the little stork spotted a group of friendly faces. It was a delightful frog family. The little froglets were splashing happily in the water. And the mama and papa frog sat on lily pads, their big, round eyes blinking. As the tortoise and the little stork passed by, the frogs waved their webbed feet and croaked cheerful greetings. Ribbit! Ribbit! Have a good day! They called out. The little stork chirped back a happy hello. It was nice to see such a cheerful family enjoying their day. Even the wise owl, perched high on a branch of a large oak tree at the edge of the meadow, gave a slow, knowing blink as they passed. The little stork felt a warmth spread through him. Each friendly encounter, each small kindness, made his big journey feel a little less daunting. He knew he would find his own family someday, and until then, he had made some lovely friends along the way. Whispers of the Woods, their journey with the helpful tortoise led the little stork to the edge of a whispering woods. The trees stood tall and close together, their leaves creating a canopy that dappled the sunlight on the forest floor. It looked different from the open meadows they had been traveling through. The air here felt cooler and carried the earthy scent of damp leaves and pine needles. A sense of quiet mystery hung amongst the trees. As they approached the first line of trees, a familiar bushy tail flicked into view. The curious squirrel scampered down the trunk of an oak, his bright eyes full of interest as he chattered excitedly. "Welcome to the Whispering Woods," he chirped, his voice a little muffled by a nut he was still holding. "What brings you this way?" The little stork, still perched comfortably on the tortoise's back, replied, "We are on a long journey. We are hoping this path leads towards where my family might have flown." The squirrel's ears perked up. "A long journey, you say? The woods are full of interesting sounds and hidden paths. Be careful though, some parts can be a little tricky to navigate." He then paused, tilting his head. "Did you hear that?" The little stork listened intently. Above the rustling of the leaves and the gentle creaking of branches, he could hear a soft, melodic hoot. It was the wise owl, his wise call echoing through the trees. It felt like a welcoming sound, but also a reminder that the woods held secrets and stories of their own. The little stork felt a mix of excitement and a touch of apprehension as they ventured into the shade of the Whispering Woods. Ancient wisdom, the Whispering Woods lived up to its name. As the little stork and the helpful tortoise ventured deeper, the sounds of the outside world faded, replaced by the gentle rustling of leaves, the chirping of unseen birds, and the soft sighing of the wind through the branches. Sunlight filtered through the dense canopy in streaks, illuminating patches of mossy ground and fallen leaves. The air was still and carried a scent of old wood and damp earth. The cheerful butterflies, who had followed them into the woods, danced through the sunbeams, their colorful wings like tiny jewels flashing in the dim light. They seemed to enjoy the quiet magic of this place. As they rounded a bend in the narrow path, they came upon a magnificent sight. A huge, ancient tree stood before them, its trunk wider than the little stork had ever imagined. Its gnarled roots spread out across the ground like sleeping giants, and its thick branches reached towards the sky like crooked fingers. This tree looked like it had stood there for centuries, witnessing countless seasons pass, perched high on one of the sturdy branches, with his large, knowing eyes, sat the wise owl. He watched their approach with a calm and steady gaze. The little stork felt a sense of peace wash over him in the presence of this ancient being and the grand old tree. It felt like this was a place where secrets were kept and wisdom resided. Perhaps, the wise owl could offer some guidance on his long journey. The woods felt both mysterious and somehow comforting, a place where the past and the present seemed to breathe together. A helping wing, deeper into the whispering woods they traveled, the path winding and sometimes disappearing beneath a carpet of fallen leaves. The helpful tortoise, despite his slow pace, knew the forest surprisingly well, carefully navigating over roots and around moss-covered stones. The little stork, though enjoying the ride, kept his eyes and ears open, hoping for any sign or sound that might lead him closer to his family. Suddenly, they heard a rustling in the undergrowth beside the path. A flurry of colorful wings emerged, and the cheerful butterflies fluttered around the little stork excitedly. One of them zipped close to his ear and seemed to be trying to get his attention. Darting its tiny body in a particular direction, the little stork looked that way but saw nothing unusual, just more trees and bushes. He chirped questioningly at the butterfly. The butterfly then flew a short distance and hovered near a low-hanging branch, as if urging him to look closer. Intrigued, the little stork hopped off the tortoise's back and fluttered to the branch. There, caught in a tangle of thorny vines, was a small bird, its wing twisted at an awkward angle. It chirped weakly, its eyes wide with fear. The little stork felt a surge of sympathy. Even though he was on his own important journey, he couldn't ignore a creature in need. He knew what it felt like to be lost and vulnerable. With a determined look, he carefully began to peck at the vines, trying to free the trapped bird. The cheerful butterflies hovered nearby, their presence a silent encouragement. A helping wing, deeper into the whispering woods they traveled, the path winding and sometimes disappearing beneath a carpet of fallen leaves. The helpful tortoise, despite his slow pace, knew the forest surprisingly well, carefully navigating over roots and around moss-covered stones. The little stork, though enjoying the ride, kept his eyes and ears open, hoping for any sign or sound that might lead him closer to his family. Suddenly, they heard a rustling in the undergrowth beside the path. A flurry of colorful wings emerged, and the cheerful butterflies fluttered around the little stork excitedly. One of them zipped close to his ear and seemed to be trying to get his attention. Darting its tiny body in a particular direction, the little stork looked that way but saw nothing unusual, just more trees and bushes. He chirped questioningly at the butterfly. The butterfly then flew a short distance and hovered near a low-hanging branch, as if urging him to look closer. Intrigued, the little stork hopped off the tortoise's back and fluttered to the branch. There, caught in a tangle of thorny vines, was a small bird, its wing twisted at an awkward angle. It chirped weakly, its eyes wide with fear. The little stork felt a surge of sympathy. Even though he was on his own important journey, he couldn't ignore a creature in need. He knew what it felt like to be lost and vulnerable. With a determined look, he carefully began to peck at the vines, trying to free the trapped bird. The cheerful butterflies hovered nearby, their presence a silent encouragement. A stormy night's shelter, the first fat raindrops startled Pip. Hours of flight had blurred familiar sights. Panic flickered within him. Where could he find refuge from this sudden storm? Darkness swallowed the sky, and the wind howled fiercely. Pip's wings ached, and the downpour obscured everything. Just as despair crept in, a faint light flickered through the rain. It emanated from a small, solid cottage nestled among trees. Mustering his last strength, Pip flew towards it. He landed clumsily on the porch, soaked and shivering. The door creaked open, revealing a kind old woman with gentle eyes. She gasped softly at the sight of the little stork. "Oh, you poor dear! Come inside quickly." Before you get a chill, gratefully, Pip hopped into the warm cottage. A crackling fire glowed in the hearth. The old woman tenderly dried Pip's feathers. "You must be lost, little one," she murmured. "Where are your parents?" Pip chirped sadly, trying to convey his separation during the migration. The old woman seemed to understand. "Don't fret, little friend. You can stay here until the storm passes." She offered Pip a small dish of water and crushed berries. He ate hungrily, feeling warmth return. As the storm raged, Pip found solace in the cozy cottage and the old woman's kindness. He was safe for the night, but longing for his family remained. He wondered about the dawn. I will now edit the previous image to ensure it remains consistent with the adjusted text. Focusing on the cozy atmosphere of the cottage and the interaction between Pip and the old woman during the storm. A warm bed and worried thoughts, Pip awoke to the gentle chirping of birds outside. Sunlight streamed through a small window, painting warm stripes across the wooden floor. He was nestled in a soft, hand-stitched quilt on a small bed in the corner of the cottage. The old woman, whose name he now knew was Alara, was humming softly as she prepared breakfast by the crackling stove. The aroma of something sweet filled the air, and Pip's tummy rumbled. Alara turned and smiled kindly. "Good morning, little one. Did you sleep well?" Pip chirped his happy agreement, feeling refreshed and safe. He hopped out of bed and watched as Alara placed a bowl of warm porridge with berries in front of him. It was the most delicious thing he had ever tasted. After breakfast, Pip explored the cozy cottage. It was filled with interesting objects, dried herbs hanging from the rafters, shelves lined with colorful jars, and a spinning wheel in the corner. Alara told him stories of her life in the woods, of the changing seasons and the creatures that lived there. Despite the warmth and kindness, a little worry still tugged at Pip's heart. He missed his family terribly. He wondered if they were safe and if they were looking for him. He hopped to the window and gazed out at the clear blue sky. The storm had passed, and the world looked bright and inviting, but it also felt vast and unknown without his parents. Alara noticed his wistful gaze. She came and gently stroked his feathers. "I know you miss your family, little Pip," she said softly. "But don't lose hope. Tomorrow, when you are stronger, we can look for them. Perhaps the wise owl, who lives in the ancient oak tree at the edge of the woods, might have seen your flock." A glimmer of hope sparked in Pip's chest. The wise owl. He had heard stories of the owl's wisdom. Maybe he could help. Feeling a renewed sense of purpose, Pip chirped happily and nuzzled against Alara's hand. For now, he was safe and had a plan for tomorrow. Wisdom of the old oak, bright sun greeted Pip. Feeling stronger after Alara's breakfast, they prepared to seek the wise owl. Alara packed snacks for their trek. "The old oak lies to the west," Alara directed, pointing into the woods. "It's a fair distance, but I will guide you." They ventured into the forest. Pip hopped along, occasionally taking flight. Birdsong filled the air, and leaves whispered in the gentle breeze. Sunlight filtered through the trees, painting the ground in shifting patterns. Fluttering cheerful butterflies greeted Pip near vibrant wildflowers, wishing him luck. Further on, the helpful tortoise moved slowly through the underbrush, offering encouraging words for his journey. At last, a massive oak tree came into view, its ancient branches reaching towards the sky. This was the wise owl's dwelling. "Oh, wise owl!" Elara called softly, a deep hoot echoed from above. "Who seeks the old oak?" "It is Elara," she responded respectfully, "with a small friend in need of your wisdom." A large owl with knowing eyes descended and perched on a low branch, observing Pip intently. "Speak, little one. What troubles you?" Nervously, Pip chirped his tale to the wise owl, being separated from his family during the storm and his strong desire to find them. The wise owl listened patiently, his head slightly tilted. When Pip finished, the owl blinked slowly. "Recently, after the storm, I observed a large flock of storks flying towards the sunny meadows beyond the Whispering River. Your family might have been among them." Hope surged within Pip. The Whispering River. Elara knew the way. "Oh, thank you, wise owl." Pip chirped with excitement. "Keep your spirits up, little one," the owl advised kindly. "The journey ahead may be long, but with courage and help, you might yet reunite with your family." Towards the Whispering River, with the wise owl's directions in their ears, Pip and Elara said goodbye to the old oak. Their next stop was the Whispering River, beyond which lay the sunny meadows where Pip's family might be. Elara led the way, her steps steady. The path went deeper into the woods, the trees growing taller and closer. The air was full of the soft sound of streams and leaves rustling underfoot. Pip followed, his little heart filled with hope and worry. As they walked, they saw the curious squirrel darting in the branches above. He chattered excitedly about their trip. When Pip said they were looking for his family, the squirrel offered to watch from the treetops. Further on, they heard frogs croaking, the friendly frog family by a small pond. They greeted Elara warmly and listened to Pip's story. The father frog, a large one with big eyes, offered them a ride across the pond on a lily pad, saving them a long walk. The trip was long, but each friendly face and each step towards the Whispering River made Pip more hopeful. Elara told stories of the river and the nice meadows beyond, painting a picture of warmth and family in Pip's mind. Finally, they heard it, a soft, flowing sound that grew louder. The Whispering River. Its water shone in the sun as it went through the trees. Elara smiled at Pip. "We're here, little one. Now, let's see what's on the other side." They found a shallow place to cross, Elara helping Pip carefully. On the other side, the trees became fewer, and a large area of sunny meadows with colorful wildflowers appeared. The air buzzed with bees and distant bird calls. Could his family be here? Pip's heart beat fast as they started to explore the open meadows, his eyes looking for anything familiar. The Whispering Woods and the Lost Song, little Pip soared above emerald woods. Months passed since separation. Autumn-scented air, leaves turned red and gold. Wise Owl spoke of whispering woods. Ancient trees held memories in rustling leaves. Paths were confusing, Pip descended. Sunlight dappled through leaves. Forest sounds muted, a constant whisper. He flew, navigating branches. Whispers grew, he felt watched. Landed on a branch, a faint melody reached him. Like his mother's lullaby. A sharp pang of longing, he followed the sound. It led deeper. A clearing with golden light, cheerful butterflies gathered around a wilting flower. Their usual flitting was gone. The sad song came from them. Pip hopped closer. "What's wrong?" he chirped, a sunset-winged butterfly sighed. "We lost our song. It helped flowers bloom." Wind took it, Pip listened, sympathetic. He knew loss. Maybe I can help. I traveled far. What did it sound like? Butterflies hummed fragments. Pip listened intently. Familiar, I think, Pip said. I heard something like that by the brook on the other side. The wind was strong, butterflies' antennae perked. Really? Yes, Pip replied. Show me the brook, I'll listen. With new hope, Pip and Butterflies set off, the little stork determined to find their song. The babbling brook secret, following the cheerful butterflies, Pip flew deeper into the whispering woods. The undergrowth was thick, and the air hummed with the constant susurrus of the leaves. Finally, they reached a babbling brook, its water sparkling over smooth, moss-covered stones. This is it, one of the blue butterflies chirped, landing on Pip's head. The wind was strong here a few days ago. Pip listened intently, tilting his head this way and that. The only sound was the gentle gurgling of the water. He closed his eyes, trying to isolate any other melody. Suddenly, he heard it, a faint, almost inaudible whisper carried on the breeze. It was a fragment of the butterfly's lost song. Excitement fluttered in his chest. I hear it, he exclaimed. It's very faint, but it's here. The butterflies buzzed around him excitedly. Where? Where? Pip followed the sound upstream. It grew slightly louder as they rounded a bend. There, perched on a low-hanging willow branch, was the curious squirrel, his cheeks bulging with acorns. And he was humming the butterfly's song. Excuse me, Mr. Squirrel, Pip called out politely. Are you humming a song? The squirrel stopped, startled, and a few acorns tumbled from his mouth. He looked at Pip and the swarm of colorful butterflies. Yes? It's a catchy tune I overheard the other day. That's our song, cried the butterflies. You have our lost song. The squirrel looked surprised. Oh! I did not know it belonged to anyone. It just stuck in my head. Pip explained their plight, how the song helped the flowers and the forest. The squirrel listened thoughtfully. Well, he said finally, I suppose I can give it back. But I really like it. Maybe you can teach it to me properly. The butterflies happily agreed, and the curious squirrel returned their precious song. The woods seemed to sigh in relief as the melody filled the air once more. The journey home begins. After many adventures and making wonderful friends, Pip felt a familiar stirring in his heart. The air was getting cooler, and the days were becoming shorter. He remembered his parents telling him about the changing seasons and the long journey back home. A pang of longing for his family filled him. He missed their warm wings and comforting calls. Saying goodbye to his dear friends was difficult. Wise Owl gave him parting advice, reminding him of all he had learned on his journey. The cheerful butterflies fluttered around him one last time, their colorful wings like tiny rainbows. Helpful Tortoise offered words of encouragement, and curious Squirrel chattered his best wishes for a safe trip. The friendly frog family croaked their farewells from the lily pads. With a grateful heart full of memories, Pip soared into the sky. He looked back at the land that had become his temporary home, a patchwork of green fields and sparkling rivers. He carried within him the lessons he had learned and the friendships he had forged. The journey north was long, but Pip was no longer the small, frightened stork who had been separated from his family. He was stronger, wiser, and more confident. He navigated by the sun and the stars, his wings beating steadily. Sometimes, he would see other birds flying in the same direction, and a sense of hope would flutter within him. Could they be heading home too? One sunny morning, as he flew over a familiar landscape, a sight made his heart leap. In the distance, he saw a group of storks circling above the familiar green reeds of his birthplace. With a burst of energy, Pip soared towards them, his calls filled with excitement. Reunion. As Pip drew closer to the circling storks, he called out with all his might. Two familiar figures broke away from the group and flew towards him. It was his parents. Their calls of joy echoed through the sky as they recognized their little Pip. Tears welled up in Pip's eyes as he flew into their embrace. Their wings felt as warm and comforting as he remembered. They nuzzled him and welcomed him back with loving calls. The other storks circled around them, their calls filled with at the reunion. Pip told his parents all about his adventures, the stormy night, the strange new lands he had seen, and the wonderful friends he had made. His parents listened intently, their eyes filled with concern and pride. They were so relieved to have him back safe and sound. They explained that they had searched for him after the storm, but the strong winds had carried him too far away. They had never given up hope of seeing him again. Pip felt a wave of gratitude wash over him for his resilient and loving family. Sharing the stories, back in their old nest, Pip was finally home. It felt wonderful to be surrounded by his family and the familiar sights and sounds of their home. He spent his days sharing stories of his journey with his parents and the other young storks. He told them about the wise words of the owl, the cheerful dances of the butterflies, the slow but steady help of the tortoise, the curious questions of the squirrel, and the friendly croaks of the frog family. He described the different landscapes he had flown over and the various creatures he had encountered. His stories were filled with excitement and wonder, and the young storks listened with wide eyes. Pip realized how much he had grown during his unexpected adventure. He was no longer just a little stork, he had become a traveler, a storyteller, and a friend to many. As the days grew shorter and the stars shone brighter, Pip felt a deep sense of belonging. He was home, surrounded by love and warmth, and his heart was full of joy. The big journey had been challenging, but it had also been an incredible learning experience. A new beginning. The following spring, as the first flowers began to bloom, Pip watched new little storks hatch in their nests. He remembered being just like them, full of curiosity and a little bit of fear about the world. Now, he was one of the older storks, and he often shared his stories and experiences with the young ones, encouraging them to be brave and open to new adventures. He knew that even when things seemed difficult, there was always something to learn and someone kind to meet. Pip continued to live happily with his family, and every year, as they embarked on their migration, he looked forward to seeing new places and perhaps even visiting his old friends. He knew that no matter where his journeys took him, his heart would always hold the memories of his big adventure and the love of his family. And so, the little stork who had taken a big journey continued to soar through life, his wings carrying stories of courage, friendship, and the joy of coming home.